I'm Maddie. I'm your Blue Cross Blue Shield, the Michigan Wellbeing Coordinator, and we're going to do a blender waffle recipe. It's super quick, super simple, and you don't need a ton of fancy ingredients to make it. So we're going to start by adding 2 bananas to the blender. You might too, before you start blending it all, get your waffle iron all warmed up so that it's all preheated before you get done with blending this recipe. So I'm going to take the banana peels. Like you always know, I compost everything, so we're going to throw those bananas in there. They can be fresh or frozen. If you do use frozen bananas, you want to thaw them out just a little bit. So totally up to you what route you want to go. So then what I'm going to add is I'm going to add my 2 cups of oats to this recipe. Take the lid off of this. 2 cups, putting that into the blender. Awesome. Then what we're going to do is add a teaspoon of cinnamon to this recipe as well. So you can kind of modify it based on how big your family is. So if you're doing this recipe that I'm showing you right now, you can always double it. Usually this will make like 3 to 4 pancakes, depending on how thick, or waffles, how thick you keep them. So depending on how big your family is, you might want to double it or so, or how many people you're feeding. Double it or triple it. So we're adding 1 teaspoon of cinnamon to it. You can always add a little more, especially if you want to add a little more cinnamon. We're going to add a pinch of salt to it, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, scooping that in, and then we're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla to this recipe as well. Remember, you can always modify it, so especially if you don't do well with certain ingredients, you can always modify it to meet your dietary needs. So these are gluten-free oats, so you can use gluten-free regular oats. They both work in this recipe. And then you can pick your milk. So it can be almond milk, it can be oat milk, it could be whole milk, it could be also coconut milk. I'm using coconut milk. It's a little thicker, so I'm going to add a little bit of water to it to make it less thick, and then I'll kind of show you once the oats and everything sets up after we blend it, it gets a little thicker. So you always just want to add a little bit more water to it. You can add it by hand, just mixing it in there, or you can add it, if you let it sit in the blender, you can add water in it then as well. So we're going to add about a cup of milk to that. You see, so that's about a half a cup of coconut milk, and I'm just going to add another half a cup of water to it to thin it out a bit. And if you let this sit in the fridge, say you don't use it until the next day, or you just want to have this batter ready for the, throughout the week to make these, you always want to add a little bit more water to it as well, because it will sit up and be extra thick. So I'm going to add that to there. Use my spatula, get it all out, clean it out. Okay, so we got that all done. So now I'm just going to put the lid on it, and you're just going to blend it up. This blender is high duty blender, and I might want to plug it in for it to work. That might be the golden ticket. So I'm going to press it down, put it on medium, and let it do its thing. There we go. Now you want to blend it so it's all ground up, all the ingredients are well mixed together. So I even take it throughout. If you notice on the sides it's sticking, I will then go and scrape it a little bit to make sure all those ingredients get up in there. You're not cheating yourself. Put it back on. Lock it into place. take it off this and I'll kind of roll it around so you are able to see how this looks. Set it in there. So you can see it's a little more runny. And then what I'm going to do, so once you notice, you put it, say, in a bowl or a storage container, whatever it is to kind of what you want to put in, or if you're baking them right away, it will sit up and thicken. Kind of like those other waffles I made where they were just 3 ingredients, it gets kind of thick. So then you can just add water by hand, and I always add just a little dab of water, and then you can always add more if you still think it's too thick. Because you want it to be a little more, not like runny, but more like pancake batter. So I already have some made, so you can see how it's like sits up. It gets really thick and it's not rolling around. So then in this, I would just add maybe a 1/4 cup, mix it around, see how it reacts, and then whether or not if I add more, it's going to depend on how it comes out. So I'm going to pull this out. Give it a couple taps, and then I'm going to pour it into this bowl. I'm just going to have it all mixed together. Just scrape it out, make sure, whoops, well, it's okay, a little mess. So you're just going to scrape it out. Switch my position. There we go. Getting it all out. And if you lick your fingers, the batter tastes pretty good. So feel free. It doesn't have any egg or anything in it that's gonna get you sick. So feel free to taste it out. Especially if you want to add a more cinnamon, or it's perfect time. It's fall. You can add some pumpkin spice to that as well, and you can even try adding pumpkin to it instead of banana to kind of give it more of a pumpkin flavoring. So that you can kind of see it's a little more runny. So if I'm going to use this right away instead of letting it sit, this consistency is fine. But like I showed you before, if it's that thicker, add a little bit of water to it. So now that my waffle maker's all ready, I'm going to add just a little bit of coconut oil, grease it up a little bit. You can use whatever oil you choose. So, totally based on your kind of preference, you can use butter. I'm just going to put that down, spread it out throughout, let it melt. And then I'm going to close the waffle maker so that make sure it gets coated for a little bit. If you have one of those ones that's kind of like those square, they're broken up into 4 squares, it might make more waffles than making a huge single one. So you'll make more waffles for each person. And these are super dense and filling, so you don't need to eat a ton of them to fill up your stomach. You'll definitely feel full after eating one. So I'm just going to take my measuring cup, dip it in there, and then spread it around. Give it a little bit more. I want to make sure this waffle is nice and full. Roll it around, make sure it's distributed. And then close it. And let it sit. Depending on what kind of waffle iron, either you have a light that will tell you that needs to come on or off. This one's vintage, if you would say. And so it's going to kind of depending, I check on it here and there, but you want to let it sit just for a little bit, let it cook. And I'm going to actually add some more water to this one since we have the stuff in the bottom that's a little more thicker. So I'm going to try to de-thick. I guess not de-thick. Make it a little less thick. Mix it up. So then it's extra runny. And it's going to be the same consistency if you're going to use these for pancakes as well. So I'm just going to mix this all up. And then you can top it with whatever you want. You can even add protein when you put it in the blender. Add some protein to it so you don't have to, especially if you want to make it so you can put them in the freezer, store them, grab and go type thing, warm it up in the microwave, warm it up in the toaster, whatever you choose. This is a great recipe to make in batches so that you have them and you don't have to buy the store-bought waffles, which really are not the best for you. And these ones are healthy, simple ingredients that you can use, and the kids will love them. Add peanut butter, add yogurt, add chocolate chips to them before. You can just add chocolate chips to the batter, cook them that way. or add fruit. So hopefully you enjoy this recipe and you try it out. Let me know. But I'm Maddie. I'm your Blue Cross Blue Shield Michigan Wellbeing Coordinator. I hope you have a happy, healthy day. Thank you.